guess he tried. Yeah, he tried the pad, and then he just looked.
Oh, he just decided I'm coming in.
Now, the word is that video was an unintended acceleration event. And further, legend has it, this person parked the Cybertruck with the concrete still on top of the vehicle. And perhaps Tesla should list this as a feature on the Cybertruck website. Gate codes are no longer required. Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. I'm of the camp now that much more Tesla news is hidden or beneath the surface. The days of hawking Tesla's delivery figures or vehicle updates in Monroe Live doing teardowns are largely a thing of the past. Today, given Tesla's AI focus, a lot of the air quote news is actually breakthroughs happening on the AI side that we don't always hear about. But when we do, I want to do my best to make sure everybody actually understands, at least from a high level, what's going on here. So Elon said the Samsung fab in Texas will make AI 6, not AI 5. Remember, the last update we got was that TSMC is going to make AI 5 first overseas and then eventually at its new fab in Arizona. Elon continued, the decision regarding using HBM, which is high bandwidth memory, has not been made yet. So there may come a time when we revisit this if they do make that decision, so we can distinguish between high bandwidth memory and just your conventional RAM. HBM can have lower latency and better power efficiency, and a lot of that is thanks to it being closer to the processor and it has a more optimized design. But as you would expect, there are trade-offs. Conventional RAM can scale to higher capacities much easier. And further, typically HBM is a lot more expensive, so that could make AI 5 more expensive. It could make the price of FSD more expensive. But again, for today, since Tesla has not yet switched over to HBM, just know if they do, it offers a much higher bandwidth and better efficiency for FSD, and eventually likely for Optimus too, this compared to conventional RAM, but it's more expensive and is likely harder to scale, meaning there would be some capacity limitations. But Elon's second line is what I wanted to focus on. As the ratio of total parameters to active, aka frequently used parameters, increases, the cost per unit of useful compute and compute per watt may favor relatively conventional RAM. As a refresher, these parameters in Tesla's neural net for FSD are just like knobs. Ultimately, it's how the model is fine-tuned after being trained on all of this video data. So more knobs, aka more parameters, just means the model can be more complex and handle more nuance. So yes, it'll take Tesla some time to refine all of these new knobs on FSD version 14, but you can imagine once Tesla gets all of those knobs dialed in, that's why Elon's confident our cars will feel sentient toward the end of this year. But this ratio Elon was hinting at is actually something called sparsity. James Douma said, this is the first explicit confirmation I've seen Tesla is using sparsity in the neural networks for FSD. And Elon is telling us they're trending towards greater sparsity, which is consistent with inference trends in the LLM world, and it's a very positive indicator for the level of performance we can expect to see in the car for FSD. To oversimplify this, sparsity is training Tesla's neural net so that a lot of the parameters or the knobs in the model actually have a zero value. So if 75% of the neural network has zero values, then the inference compute becomes a lot easier because it can just skip over all of those zero values. Another way to think about this, Tesla's FSD constantly has all of this video footage coming in from the cameras. This isn't a great example, but just to make the point about sparsity, let's say the car is trying to back into a parking spot. Well, all of the cameras facing directly forward become mostly irrelevant for that task. Now, no, it's not the case that the neural net would be zeroing out any raw pixel values from those front cameras. Of course, all of those inputs are still coming into the neural net, but what I'm getting at here is through the training of the model, the weights that are connected to those irrelevant features. In this case, the visuals that are more forward-facing might be zeroed out in a model that's deploying sparsity. So basically, without sparsity, the neural network would be wasting cycles processing everything equally, which would lead to slower decision making or more energy use. And of course, there's so much more detail than this, but just know sparsity isn't rigid. It's actually adaptive. So if the front cameras were to detect something that was actually relevant, the system would be able to dynamically activate the relevant weights in the model to incorporate that data. So I think that'll make it clear. Sparsity is just the neural net learning over time what data is actually relevant for the actual outcome needed. And when a model can do this well, that of course requires less memory. It requires less computational power. Again, because all of those values that get zeroed out can be skipped over. Not only that, but these models can be significantly smaller, which I think could be a ray of hope for Hardware 3 owners. Absolutely no promises though. And practically speaking, these sparse neural networks can make inference happen a lot faster. So with FSD, decisions can be made quicker. So think about the perception aspect of Tesla's FSD. You may remember that bag of points we talked about for years that Tesla was using. It was called this dense raster, but it was basically just a representation of reality. And doing it that way, every single pixel or point was densely populated. But over time, Tesla's model has become more advanced and has shifted to vector spaces, which leads to better performance and more of this sparsity. And part of the reason I'm explaining this is because even just one aspect, Tesla moving away from those dense rasters, the bag of points, to these vector spaces, is an evolution that only happened from Tesla training the model over years with billions of miles of data. And this is what I mean. A lot of the Tesla news is now not always being reported on, so we just have to go with the morsels that we get from Elon and the team. But the overall takeaway is for anybody out there arguing that other automakers are just going to have unsupervised because Tesla does, it's completely ridiculous. They seem to be under the assumption that these companies will just be able to throw some cameras in their cars, spend billions of dollars on compute, and then, a couple months later, and they're going to have unsupervised FSD, which of course is just absurdity to the highest degree. But back to James, he said dense networks require a very high I/O to compute ratio on existing compute systems. I/O just stands for input-output, and anytime you hear that term, just think of how fast the system can store and pull data from slow storage. It's really just referring to the speed of data movement that's actually required to perform all of these math computations. And this right here is one of the main bottlenecks of these models. They have to shuffle massive amounts of data in and out of memory that creates bottlenecks. So this I/O to compute ratio is essentially just the memory bandwidth to the raw compute power of the chip. So again, anybody just focusing on the raw flop power of a chip is missing the bigger story. Dalma continues, this is a problem for edge compute. Just think of inference, the compute chip on Tesla's vehicles, Hardware 3, AI 4, that's referred to as edge compute, where each hardware system serves a single user and cannot be shared like cloud services can. It makes the hardware slower and more complicated. That's because chip I/O is painfully slow and expensive compared to compute. I/O will completely dominate the price to performance ratio of your platform if it's not aggressively reduced relative to the compute requirements. We're learning that sparsity works very well, and neural nets can achieve high levels of sparsity with good efficiency on existing hardware designs. Sparsity today has essentially zero accuracy penalty, and there won't be any serious edge inference systems that don't make heavy use of sparsity. And I actually just saw this follow-up from James. He said, this, along with continuing improvements, is both quantization and performance for small networks, is why I think the jury is still out on whether Hardware 3 is going to be able to exceed human performance in the next year. The software is getting better very fast, and Tesla's enormous investment in training compute lays the groundwork for further substantial improvements. So forget my speculation that there was some hope out there for Hardware 3 owners. I would take it now directly from James. I just think too many people, when they think of Hardware 3, all they think about are these hardware or raw compute limitations and completely forget about all of the the software and model advancements on that side that Tesla can still achieve. So again, to drive the point home, I/O, think memory bandwidth. It basically measures how fast and efficient data can be transferred between storage, like memory, and the actual processing, think inference compute, in Tesla's FSD model. So I/O refers to the speed and efficiency of data movement, and for Tesla's FSD and the neural net, it's one of the main bottlenecks today. Which is precisely why this is another AI breakthrough of sorts, at least for our understanding and information becoming public. I think it's accurate to say that Tesla's improvements using sparsity for their FSD neural nets will help to alleviate these I/O bottlenecks. And as Tesla continues to scale up the number of parameters in the model, possibly by an order of magnitude for version 14, that's going to require even more data transfer between memory and compute, which will make any of these I/O bottlenecks even worse. Which is exactly why things like sparsity on the software side and AI5 on the hardware side are so important. So I hope at the very least you get a taste of all of these different machine learning techniques and optimizations that are taking place behind the scenes at Tesla. And a lot of this is bleeding edge stuff that requires a very talented type of software machine learning engineer. So for anybody out there that thinks people at GM or Ford are just going to randomly have all of this talent, you know, the companies that are still rolling out software that looks like it's from the early 2000s, it's just lunacy to think that these companies are going to magically come up with unsupervised FSD generalized like Tesla is solving for. And on that point, I'm not able to share everything yet, but I will say I have heard from a very reliable source that is in the know when it comes to Tesla's upcoming robotaxi expansion. I will just say there's a reason things may have seemed stagnant as of late. So whenever we get the next update, it may be updates plural. And I want to make it clear, I've had the privilege of hearing from, I would say, 5+ different sources. So if any of you start to think in your minds, oh, I know who Dylan's referring to, I would say 1, you probably don't. And 2, a lot of times these sources actually rotate. So it's a different person from time to time. And trust me, I wish I could give you more information, and the second I'm able to, I will. But if I were to ever do it too early, I would not have these sources at all. And yes, this is what I mean when I say somewhat tongue-in-cheek that, hey, maybe Elon did actually know something with that billion-dollar stock purchase. But as I made it very clear earlier this week, a lot of this is actually already public information. It's just a matter of how fast it actually comes to fruition. And on that point, I'll just say the pace of this robotaxi expansion may be picking up to what we've heard so far in the not too distant future. So yes, Tesla may now have the logistical operation side figured out, and they're feeling confident about that, meaning Tesla is very close to being ready for acceleration. And in case you forgot, Elon did say FSD version 14 should start to roll out this month in September. We only have about 12 days left, and he also said that robotaxi service in Austin would go public this month. Now, we'll see if Tesla can meet those timelines, but certainly exciting things ahead. Elon has recommended using a VPN a few times now, and part of that is because of this. Your internet service provider tracks your every move online because your browsing history and activity is a revenue stream for them. They sell your browsing logs and online behavior to marketing companies. If this reality upsets you, as it did me, the best thing you can do is take Elon's advice and sign up for Surfshark VPN as soon as you can, the sponsor of this video. Surfshark encrypts all your traffic by changing your IP address, so it eliminates these issues as neither your ISP nor any bad actors can see your online activity. Before I chose to work with Surfshark, I went down the review rabbit hole to see what actual users had to say. In short, there's a reason Surfshark has become one of the most trusted VPNs in the industry. Whether you travel or work from home, home, whether you want to remove ads from websites with the Clean Web feature, or whether you want to unlock new libraries of content on Netflix and other platforms, Surfshark has you covered. And no, this is not just for people doing questionable things online. It's to protect sensitive information like your name, phone number, address, emails, and to make sure your family's information stays private and is not sold around the web. So if you'd like to support the work I do here, you can get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN for free at surfshark.com/electrified, or you can use code electrified at checkout. Just in case you saw the rumors of that agriculture business that signed a letter of intent to buy 10,000 Optimus V3 bots, it should come as no surprise that Elon responded to this saying it was fake. And frankly, this is one of my biggest gripes with X, is that people, even big accounts in the Tesla community, will still just repost and share almost anything without doing any sort of homework or due diligence. Now, I will say Sawyer's been very good with this. He's actually careful about what he posts, and it seems like he does really actually do his homework. But guys, come on now. I mean, if you actually go read the press release, it looks like it's written by AI. This line right here: "We've opened the door to a future powered by Tesla, securing procurement and deployment of Optimus 3 Plus robotics and advanced technologies that streamline our operational blueprint." This initiative not only elevates wages and reinforces lawful immigration practices, but establishes a sovereign infrastructure positioned to earn federal contracts and deliver strong returns to shareholders. And just a heads up, a letter of intent, unless it explicitly says it's binding, is usually not binding. But yeah, from the get-go, this smelled like a micro-cap company looking to manipulate company stock. It did not take long at all. Tesla has now said officially supervised FSD is rolling out fleet-wide in Australia and New Zealand, not yet to Hardware 3 vehicles. For now, just Hardware 4. Tech AU has done a great job of covering this from down under. He said Tesla's releasing supervised FSD to customers with eligible vehicles who already bought FSD as of this morning. This will be pushed via a software update, and as expected, there's no timeline currently for Hardware 3 owners. And yes, of course, Hardware 4 vehicle owners that have not yet purchased FSD will also have the ability to. If you go to the Australian configurator, you'll see FSD listed 10,100 Aussie dollars, available for all new car purchases. But as of now, there is still no subscription option. It just says coming soon, a subscription for 149 Aussie dollars per month. And as far as we know, the driver profiles, Chill, Standard, and Hurry, are also not yet deployed in Australia. But it's still incredibly exciting to know that thousands of Aussies are going to get to have the experience like those 2 that we just showed in the video earlier this week. Australians have waited years for this, so to all of my mates down under that have faithfully watched the channel now for years, congratulations, enjoy, and as always, stay safe out there because it's not perfect yet. And yes, it's going wide in New Zealand as well, and in New Zealand dollars, it's 11,400 and 159 per month. And yes, I am tracking Tesla sales in Australia closely to see if the wide release of FSD does have any impact. We might see an impact in Q4, but I do think it'll take a few months for the word to actually spread, to get more butts in seats, and for the Hardware 3 gang to be a part of the party. Plus, we have to remember with the sales data, month 1 of the quarter is usually the lowest, month 2 it gets a bit better, and then month 3 is the strongest per quarter. So we still have those quite predictable delivery waves in Australia for Tesla. And in Tesla style, this is the image they're sharing in the in-car UI. For audio only, it's the FSD visualization upside down. But obviously it's just for the release notes. I was reading some benchmark stuff and came across this. ExxonMobil is now expanding into the advanced synthetic graphite business. They've entered into an agreement to acquire the tech and the US-based assets of Superior Graphite. This move marks a major milestone in our strategy to build a robust synthetic graphite supply chain right here in the US. They said synthetic graphite compared to traditional mining operations is less labor intensive, it's more consistent in quality, and can be made with our carbon-rich feedstocks from existing refining streams. They said we'll be able to scale faster and smarter, all while producing a better graphite than what's available in the market today. And let me be clear, it has been reported that Tesla does use synthetic graphite in its EV batteries, particularly in its 4680 cells. But it's also been reported that Tesla does use natural graphite through some of its deals through Syrah Resources. Exxon said this isn't a step in, it's a full-scale launch with power and purpose. When our product enters the market, we expect it'll deliver faster charging and longer life than existing graphite materials today. And don't forget, further than just performance benefits, we have about 90% of the global battery-grade graphite supply coming from, you guessed it, China. So I get it, ExxonMobil might feel like the enemy depending on what perspective you come from, but a more robust synthetic graphite anode supply would be an awesome thing for not just Tesla, but the US supply chain. Not only could Exxon's process lower the costs, but localized production should lower shipping costs as well. Now, unfortunately, we have not heard anything in terms of scale. However, they said commercial production is targeted to begin in 2029, which yes, feels like a long ways away, but don't forget, Exxon and Tesla have actually talked about working together for lithium supply back in 2023. So these companies are not strangers, and if the terms are right, it seems like Tesla would be willing to work with Exxon. And just FYI, one of the main factories that Exxon has acquired for battery materials is in Kentucky. And not only would domestic production reduce shipping costs, but it would of course help these manufacturers to qualify for domestic tax credits on the production side. And today we also learned that Panasonic is aiming to develop a new type of higher capacity battery in roughly 2 years, potentially turning into a groundbreaking advance for Tesla. But looking past marketing hype, Panasonic is working on eliminating the anode in batteries during the manufacturing stage. This could increase energy density through tech it says is likely to provide a world-leading level of capacity by the end of 2027. If achieved, the improvement would lead to a 25% increase in battery capacity, thus boosting the Model Y range by almost 90 miles. And that at the current battery pack size. But as is always the case with batteries, Panasonic could also just use the technology to make lighter and potentially cheaper versions of the batteries, and ultimately keep the range the same. So to be clear, it's not a completely anode-free battery. That wouldn't even make sense. It's just anode-free during one step of the manufacturing process. Instead, a lithium metal anode is formed in the battery after being charged for the first time. This would free up room for more active cathode materials, nickel, cobalt, aluminum, to boost capacity without changing the volume. Panasonic said it also aims to reduce the proportion of nickel, which is relatively more expensive. Of course, they're not going to share much more detail than that, but the good news, we can be hopeful that the lithium-ion battery technology will continue to advance over the next 5+ years, which is precisely why new chemistries like sodium-ion are continually being pushed back. On Tuesday, we talked about NHTSA's investigation into Tesla's door handles. And what do you know? Fast forward 2 days, and Tesla's now publicly working on a redesign of its door handles.
Ban, I guess, the Chinese issue is the flat outer door handles. Is there some idea about that on the outside?
Yeah, we're working on it right now and just looking at the details of the regulation, if and when that happens, and we'll have a really good solution for that. I'm not worried about that. Yeah, so the idea of combining the electronic one and the manual one together into one button, I think, makes a lot of sense. It really helps to, the muscle memory of reaching for something every day is there, and so you intuitively just grab the same thing and you're free.
So combining the electronic and manual release together in one button is for the inside, but we still have the question, what about people that are outside? Because as we discussed, that's actually what NHTSA is focusing on. I would just say it's possible, depending on how the NHTSA investigation goes, that in the months ahead, Tesla does come out with a different handle design from the outside as well, not just on the inside. Uber's CEO Dara did an interview with the All In cast, and here's his best pitch to Tesla.
But what's your best pitch to him to joining the Uber network?
I think, listen, the pitch is simple, which is if you're looking to maximize the revenue of those robo-taxis,
Today.
we are your ticket to the maximization of that revenue. to the extent that you're looking to have these fleets owned by people, you know, kind of the digital shepherds, which is an amazing vision that Elon has, to the extent that those owners are not able to monetize their assets on the Uber network, they will under-monetize, and if there's a competitor who is offering those vehicles to be on the Uber network, the monetization of those vehicles are going to be superior, and those digital shepherds are going to go elsewhere. So I think that is the pitch, and again, Elon is, you know, he kind of believes in full stack.
Yes.
And he's proven it. And I think that this market is large enough for there to be multiple winners.
Clearly.
But in the end, to the extent that, you know, we would love to partner with them, but at this point they're looking to go it alone, and I think the market is large enough to carry a number of winners in this ecosystem.
So fair enough. In the short term, of course, there are some benefits to Tesla partnering with Uber on the robotaxi side. But as we should all know by now, Tesla does not focus on the short term. And plain and simple, any robotaxi that would end up on the Uber network, Tesla is going to lose out on that 20 to 30% or whatever it ends up being of all of that revenue that's going to be taken by Uber. Uber is not a nonprofit, okay? They're going to be taking a fee from anyone putting robotaxis on its platform for matching supply to demand. And come on now, do we really think Tesla, one of the most talked about reported companies, is going to have a hard time coming up with ride-hail demand if they're offering prices that are a fraction of the competition? For me, I think it's an obvious no. And again, from a long-term perspective, even the Tesla customers, in response to Dara's digital shepherds argument, Tesla customers would also have to give up a share of its revenue to Uber if they put their personally owned vehicle on the Uber network. And that doesn't even touch on the potential data loss for Tesla partnering with Uber, because Tesla would be using a lot of Uber's ride-hailing interface, their dispatch algorithms, some of their customer data, because riders would most likely be booking through the Uber app. So yeah, my stance on this has not changed at all. Tesla does not need Uber. Uber needs Tesla. They just don't know it yet, but toward the end of 2026, I think the world will know it. And yes, Dara did recently sell about 21% of his holdings in Uber stock. As you would expect, plenty of people are saying this is proof that Dara knows the end is near and that Uber's in big trouble thanks to what Tesla has coming. And while I happen to believe that is true, that doesn't mean Dara yet knows it. I say that because if you actually look at the Form 4, which again, most people are not doing, it says this transaction was made pursuant to a 10b5-1 plan originally adopted November of last year. So no, this was not Dara panicking and selling his Uber stock on the open market. This was put in place 11 months ago. Elon replied to a post about the Boring Company saying, "I love trains, but the future is individualized mass transit with autonomous electric vehicles taking you precisely to your destination. Tunnels are needed to address the fundamental choke points in cities. You cannot have 3D buildings and expect 2D transport to be effective. Multiple layers of tunnels enable transport to be 3D too. The fastest way to travel long distances, city center to city center, short of new physics, is cars in pods in vacuum tunnels." Now, obviously, the Boring Company tunnels are not vacuum tunnels, so I don't know if Elon has something up his sleeve for vacuum tunnels, or he's just talking about what the current first principles thinking would be. Tesla's definitive proxy is now out. The stage is officially set for voting on November 6th. Tesla just said it's at a critical inflection point. We need your vote ahead of the annual meeting this year. Tesla shareholders will soon receive their control numbers and voting instructions from their brokers. We are asking you to vote with the board's recommendations on all proposals. Tesla's on the precipice of another massive wave of transformational growth, as demonstrated by the unveiling of Master Plan Part 4. If you believe, like us, that Elon is the CEO that can make this ambitious vision a reality, vote your shares. If you have not been following along, go to votetesla.com. And you can sign up for a chance to attend this meeting in person. I'll have the link below. It's tesla.com/2025 shareholder meeting. There will be a live stream. The event is in Austin. It'll be a random drawing and the deadline is October 10th. Elon said this shareholder vote decides the future of Tesla and may affect the future of the world. Please let us know if you have any difficulty voting. And talking about this annual meeting, Elon said this will be special. Let's not forget, May of this year, Elon said, I will have an Optimus dance troupe on stage with me at the Tesla shareholders meeting. Tesla has a new wall connector with an MID certified meter now available in the Netherlands. This enables employers to accurately record and reimburse home charging costs. So think about gig workers that use their vehicle for rideshare operations. Now they can officially track their charging costs when charging at home. And yes, I would imagine in time this will roll out in North America and elsewhere as well. Previously, Tesla's FSD strike forgiveness was at 7 days, but that's just been cut in half down to 3.5 days. So under the new policy, an autopilot strike issued for inattentiveness will be removed from your record in just 3.5 days, provided no additional strikes are received during that time. You can still build up to and have a maximum of 5 strikes, or 3 on vehicles without a cabin camera, at which point FSD will be locked out until the strikes reset. As one would expect, Elon continues to hype up the new Roadster, saying the new Roadster is something special beyond a car. So yeah, I think it's safe to say this partnership with SpaceX means it's going to be part spaceship. Elon has said the most epic product demo ever should be coming later this year, but we'll see if they stick to that timeline, because so far for the Roadster, they really have not at all. Waymo is now headed to Nashville, Tennessee, this in partnership with Lyft. They said we'll start fully autonomous operations in Nashville in the coming months and open to public riders next year. Riders will hail via the Waymo app, and as our service grows, riders will also be able to use the Lyft app to match with the Waymo vehicle. They said Lyft's extensive fleet management capabilities through FlexDrive make them an ideal partner for expanding to Nashville. And today we learned Waymo will offer its autonomous rides on Via Transportation's public transit platform, starting with Chandler City in Arizona. The service will be introduced this fall in the city's on-demand small-scale public transportation service, Chandler Flex, which is powered by Via's software. Now, over the long term, this deal between Waymo and Via could be significant for Waymo because Via is a global operation. Their platform powers public transit services for more than 700 different partners across hundreds of cities in 30 different countries. Now, obviously, Waymo would have to pre-map all of these different locations as they do now, and this operation starting later this year in Chandler will likely serve as a pilot program, but ultimately, Via's software is going to be the one handling the routing, dispatching, and monitoring of these Waymo vehicles. Listen, guys, I know everybody out there has their dogmatic opinions about stock buybacks for Tesla, but at this point, I think it's time we give Bradford Ferguson his flowers, because he's now called a few different times situations where it makes a lot of sense for Tesla to do a buyback, and each time the way it played out, Tesla would have benefited greatly. He said Tesla was at $230 per share when I tweeted they should buy back 10 billion of their own shares in order to make a quick $10 billion, a nice 100% return. And guess what? 6 months later, Tesla would have been up nearly 100% on those shares. And there's the proof. So Bradford, all of this to say, I see you, my friend. On that point, I think in a healthy manner, Tesla stock took a breather today, closing at $416.85, down 2.12%, while the NDX was up 0.95%. The volume was 7% above the average. Don't forget, check out Surfshark linked below. I'm telling you guys, we've all seen how many nefarious actors there are in the world, and I can promise you there are just as many, if not more, throughout the interwebs. You don't want to be the person with a family that's exposed to all of their practices. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Please like the video. If you did, you can find me on X linked below, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.